हरिः ॐ शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sanatana Dharma 101, Class 5. Vedic virtues. So far we have seen how Vedas have basically laid a civilization on the banks of perennial rivers. Then slowly people started migrating towards fertile plains and the civilization flourished in the fertile plains. Namah prachyai dishayascha devataye tasyam prativasante tabhyaccha namo namo dakshinayai dishayascha devataye tasyam prativasante tabhyaccha namo namaha. प्रतीच्यै दिशेयाश्च देवताये तस्यां प्रतिवसन्त्येताभ्यश्च नमो नमः उदीच्यै दिशेयाश्च देवताये तस्यां प्रतिवसन्त्येताभ्यश्च नमो नमः ऊर्ध्वायै दिशेयाश्च देवताये तस्यां प्रतिवसन्त्येताभ्यश्च नमो नमोधरायै दिशेयाश्च देवताये तस्यां प्रतिवसन्त्येताभ्यश्च नमो नमो वान्तरायै दिशे याश्च देवताये तस्यां प्रतिवसन्त्येताभ्यश्च नमो नमो गंगा यमुनयोर्मध्ये ये वसन्ति ते मे प्रसन्नात्मानश्चिरञ्जीवितं वर्धयन्ति नमो गंगा यमुनयोर्मुनिभ्यश्च नमो नमो गंगा यमुनयोर्मुनिभ्यश्च नमः. This paragraph beautifully brings unison. Whoever the people, whoever the devata, whatsoever they may be residing in the eastern direction, in the western direction, in the bottom, on the top, and those devatas that are residing on the fertile banks of Ganges and Yamuna, and all the good people residing on the banks of Ganges and Yamunas, let them flourish. So the Vedic people started moving and they were recognizing the people and the civilization on the bank of rivers such as Ganges and Yamuna. Namo Ganga Yamunayor Madhye Ye Vasanti Te Me Prasannatmanaschiranjeevitam Vardhayanti. Namo Ganga Yamunayor Munibhyascha Namo Namo Ganga Yamunayor Munibhyascha Namaha. Whoever they are residing on the banks of these rivers, it's figurative. It doesn't mean that only people residing in Ganges or Yamuna should be considered. It means that those people who are living in a refined way, in a civilized way, let them all live well, vardhayanti. And they are focused in some activity. That is what we are going to see. Mananashilaha iti muni. Although it is in a rudyam, in general way, in a general understanding, we consider muni means somebody who is focused in mind, but we should take it that those people who are focused in a particular activity, that is the hidden meaning. So we pray the Supreme to bless them with the long life so that they are focused in their way of living. Virtue, Vedic virtue. So what does Vedic virtue, what does Veda say? Veda asks us to live well, Veda asks us to live long, and Veda asks us to do the right thing. Is gambling allowed according to Vedas? It's very important. So does Veda propagate agriculture? Of course, Veda supports learning, Vidajnane, that is given. Vedas support learning. Then, does Veda support recreation? Of course, some people may nitpick saying gambling is also a recreation. Does Veda support gambling? It's a vice. Veda condemns it. Veda extols good way of living, focused way of living. Ganga Yamanayor Madhye Eva Santi Te Me Prasannatmanas Chiranjeevitam Vardhayanti. Chiranjeevi, Chiram mane long. Chiranjeevitam, long life. Let them live long life. So it extols good and lengthy life, doing the right thing. At the same time, it condemns vices. Of course, recreation in a balanced way is not a vice. But recreation which is not prescribed in Dharma is a vice. This we should know. So, most of the people think Vedas are just simply for pujan. Vedas are simply for archana. Vedas are simply for doing lot of yaga yajnas. Of course, they are. But the main important part, the Rig Veda, the primordial Vedas, purpose is to give us a good guidebook. It tells us how to live. To live well, you need to have a faith. So the Veda extols different deities. And while doing so, it asks us to live well. And Veda tells what is the better way of living, what is good recreation, what are vices, what are bad recreation. That we should know, because we have to consider Veda as an aid memoir for life. That's more important. We are not going to be a pujari or a priest practicing. We are here to refine ourselves with a better understanding of Veda. And Rig Veda is the precious gem which talks about all these way of life. So first and foremost, it supports agriculture. Of course, it supports hard work. It supports hard work. It asks us to work hard, and it asks us to support agriculture. We'll come from backwards. We'll take some references from Upanishads. Annam bahu kurvita tadvratam, make food. That is your solemn duty. Of course, I will bring reference from Veda, but let's start from the easiest thing which it is easy to understand. So we'll take an Upanishad, but Upanishad comes later part of Vedas, but I'm doing it in a reverse way. So yes, Vedas extols agriculture, hard work, artisanship and all these things. Annam bahu kurvita tadvratam. How do you get this annam? Prithiviva annam. This earth itself is the crucible for annam, for food. Akashonnadaha. And there are some people who receive the annam, like us. Akasha refers to the empty space. Figuratively, it talks about Akasha, but people who are all using that annam, there are a lot of animals used. Man is an animal, woman is an animal, human being is an animal. So we are using this food. So we are at the mercy of earth, which gives us annam. Prithivyam akasha pratishtitaha. That is the reason we are established in the annam, in the earth. Akasho prithvi pratishta. Either way, we are dependent on annam. Annam is for us mutually dependent, mutually useful. Tadedadhannamanne pratishtitam. So everything is established in food, or everything is established. Of course, Upanishad talks about in the relationship between Atma and Paramatma, because he is the one who is our master. So we are at his service. So we are like his food. So we don't want to go into the Vedanta bag here. To establish that, Veda emphasizes the importance of hard work and agriculture. There is some, in a way, misunderstanding that Vedic people only took care of cows, goats and horses. These were nomadic people. Agriculture was not known to them. No, that is what I am going to establish. Agriculture was also part of the way of life. Without agriculture, people cannot live. Annam bahu kurvita. So, animal husbandry and agriculture were two eyes to the Vedic people. If in places when they came and settled, they didn't have a fertile land, you cannot blame them. They were not able to cultivate. When they moved to places where the land was fertile, where the temperature was congenial, where there were water resources, they started doing agriculture. So there are references which I gave you. I opened this lecture by giving references on the life on the banks of Ganges and Yamunas. So Annam Bahu Kirvita. So agriculture was there. Gambling was not permitted per se. In a way, it was condemned. Of course, people, you can't control everybody. So people were gambling, but it was condemned. So recreation in a balanced way was prescribed, but anything beyond certain Rubicon, which are not prescribed by Dharma, was not allowed. So agriculture was prescribed and practiced. So Rigveda, in the 10th mandala, one hymn, one sukta talks bad things that will happen to a gambler. The hymn was an eulogy to the Savitri. The hymn was a eulogy to the sun god, and it comes as a melancholic lament. So a gambler, so it is a monologue. A gambler realizes his mistake. Beautiful. So we would not have even thought that how Vedas help us to refine our lifestyle. So one whole hymn, I guess there are 14 poems in that hymn. 14 riks or 14 poems in that hymn or sukta. In the 10th mandala, it talks about the laments, as if a gambler was doing a monologue, lamenting in a melancholic way the difficulties he is undergoing because he is addicted to dice. He is addicted to gambling. Beautiful. So it says a gambler. So it says that the gambler first tells his state of mind. Beautiful. How many people would have thought that Vedas tell this? So this is a big thing, addiction. Right now, this is what I am taking this class, because these are hidden gems in Veda. Vedas are for lifestyle. Now the world trade and the world political situation, the world economic situation is all tossed around based on an important concept of addiction. Addiction to bad things, whether it is an addiction to a prescription drug, or addiction to screen time, or addiction to movies, or addiction to gambling, whatever it is. So now, can you believe after many ages, we are still not able to conquer addiction? So Veda brings this point. Veda tells how a gambler is addicted to gambling, to the dice. When he is addicted to a particular vice, what happens? He loses his family, he loses his friends. More importantly, he loses his mother. So, mother is the most precious gift. Mother is a living God. Mother is the most precious gift one can have in this world. Pratyaksha Devata. So Veda says, it brought my ears teary to know that Veda says this, a gambler. So a gambler is one example. You should take it in a broader sense, that an addiction to vices. So an addiction to vice will make a man or a woman lose his or her mother. So we'll see the Mula text later. How does Veda say? Her mother-in-law. So the gambler is a married man. And then he says that her mother-in-law will go away from me. Her mother-in-law means wife's mother-in-law is nothing but my mother. How poetically, how dramatically Veda tells. Veda could have simply said that my mother will go away. No, Veda wants to give importance to this. So it says, her mother-in-law will go away. My wife will go away. And then it says that I have come to a state that I have become an old man who is not cared by anybody. I am a nagger, an old nag who is not even fit for sale. Nobody wants me. Poetically, Veda says this. How beautiful it is. See, her mother-in-law is going to move away. That means I am no one to my own mother. But Veda in his own poetical way says Swashru. So, Bharya Swashru. That is, wife's mother-in-law will go away. My wife will go away. A man of such a distress has come to a level, being a nag who can't be sold. Nobody wants to buy this old nag. That is the state of gambler. I have given an opportunity for a family to part away. Then it says how I was addicted. It says that gambling dice, it also gives the nature of the dice. It tells in those days what is the type of the wood they used to make a dice. It's called Vibhidhaka. I have not seen that tree, but understand that in age-old time there was a tree called Vibhidhaka, and people used to make the dice using the wood from a plant or a tree called Vibhidhaka, and that Vibhidhaka has consumed me. Then it tells that gambler, this is what Veda is. It tells like a drama. So I am hearing the sound of the dice made of the wood of Vibhidhaka, as if I am consumed by the howling noise in a deserted land. It's a wind blowing in a deserted land. Likewise, I am hearing the sound of dice made of Vibhidhaka. And where I am, because I am consumed by this noise of this voice, this dice, my place has become a deserted land. Harini Vavrita, that means Harini mane green. It is devoid of a green land. I am thrown into a devoid of green land where I am hearing this thunderous noise of the dice made of the wood from Vibhidhaka Vriksha. But I am consumed, but I am not able to get away from this deserted land because I am consumed. I am addicted, as if I have drunk soma, which is grown on the mountain called Mujavant. So these are all the names the Veda throws. So this soma herb was plenty available in the foothills of hill called Mujavant, Vedic hill. Let's take it as the Himalayas. So assume that I have been consumed. My addiction is such that I have drunk enormous amount of soma, which is grown on the foothills of Mount Mujavant. I am not able to get out of this vice. My mother is gone away. She left me. My wife left me. Then this guy realizes the mistake. Then he tells about his wife. 14 poems. Beautiful. This whole hymn, this whole sukta is about gambling. And then he says, how was my wife? She was a very kind woman. She never got angry. She never opposed me. She was always gracious to my commands. If I bring friends home, she used to cook and feed them. She was always gracious. She never got angry. But I have sinned because of loss of control of my senses. I have gambled. Then Once he realizes, then he prays. Then God Savitru, the god of sun, Savitru mane Savita, God, Surya Devata comes, takes pity on this person, and then he says, hey, take your mind out of playing dice. Do not be a gambler. Focus your attention on agriculture. That's important. Nobody would have gone and learnt this. That's very important. Do not put your time in vices. Dedicate your time on hard work. Go and do plowing. This is in Rig Veda, Mandala 10. The gambler was instructed by the god to take his mind. You may ask, so far he has been addicted so much. How could he take his mind? Because there is a godly intervention. Or assume that he got intervention from learned people. He realizes the mistake. Once he realizes the mistake, he comes into the fold of good people. He becomes faithful. Then the god comes, Savitri Devata, the sun god comes and says, take your mind out of gambling. Then an idle mind is a place of evil. So what do? Go and start working hard on the land. When you work on the land, your wife will automatically come to you. Hey man, take your mind out of dice. Go and start plowing. Then you will get your family back. Your wife will come to you. You will start caring about your calves and cows, Veda says. Then you will see the greenery there. Once you see that, Veda also tells you will get money and you will live happily. But then be content with what money you get. So that hymn emphasizes the importance of hard work. This later on Upanishad clarifies it and says, Annam Bahu Kuruvita. So what was our intent of this class is to bring out these Veda mantras or Vedic poems, which first and foremost the importance of Veda is a guidebook. If the book doesn't give you code of conduct, then what is the purpose of a good book? So this is what our class effort is, to bring wherever possible the actual meaning of Veda. So Veda condemns uncontrolled recreation, per se gambling. And to explain this, the Veda gives this in only 14 poems or 14 rigs. To explain the bad and ill effects of this uncontrolled recreation or addiction, 2 stories come in the later days, in the Puranic days. And one story is about Yudhishthira gambling twice during Rajasuya Yaga. He could have stopped at the first gamble itself. He gets addicted. He gives up his land. He gives up all his cattle. He gives himself up. He gives his brothers. Even after giving himself up, even after pledging his brothers, his addiction is such that he pledges his wife. That leads to the Kurukshetra war. The entire humanity is lost, but for a handful of people. Entire humanity was lost. So, Veda tells this, then the Purana comes and gives an elaborate example. Mahabharata is all about dice, ill effects of dice. Veda says that dice is made out of a tree, wood from a tree called Vibhidaka. And where does this Vibhidaka grow? The Vibhidaka grows on the foothills of Mount Mujavant or Hill Mujavant. That is also the place where soma herb is also available in plenty. So the god takes pity on this gambler because he realized the mistake. Whereas Yudhishthira could have realized the mistake when he did the mistake first time. His addiction was overwhelming him, and then he kept on pledging and pledging and pledging, and it went to a level that he loses his beloved wife, who is nothing but Agni Devata. So Draupadi is nothing but this Swarupam of Agni, Pativratyam. And another story also Puran brings into light is Nala and Damayanti. Nala Damayanti story and Mahabharata story elaborate. So these Puranas and Itihasas are elaboratory texts of Veda. Then you may think, why did Vyasa write a story about somebody playing dice? Because Veda tells this, and also Veda tells it as a story. It's a melancholic lament of a gambler who witnesses his state of mind and feels what all he had lost because of this gambling. And then he prays to the god Savitri. Who is Savita? Savita is nothing but the god of knowledge, Tejas. That is what in the third mandala, the entire third mandala is by Rishi Viswamitra and his progenis. In the third mandala, last sukta is where Gayatri mantra is there. Third mandala, third canto, last sukta is Gayatri. The meter is Gayatri. The poetic structure is Gayatri. And there is also a little bit nuance here. Normally Gayatri is made of 24 letters. But this Vedic Gayatri is made up of 23 letters. So it's called Naichrik Gayatri. Naichrik Gayatri. One letter less. In common parlance, Gayatri has 24 letters. But this particular mantra, the Savitri mantra or Gayatri mantra set in Gayatri tone or meter has 24 letters instead of common 23 letters instead of common 24. That's the important thing you should know. And this Gayatri mantra, which invokes the Savita Devata or the Tejas or the Surya or Surya Narayana, is set in 23 letters, comes in the third mandala, last hymn, last sukta, third mandala of Rigved. It also comes in the Khilabhag of Upanishad. It also comes in the Mahanarayana Upanishad section of Upanishad, but it is primarily placed in the Viswamitra canto of Rigved. So this gambler eventually, it means he prays to Savitri Devata, means he gains knowledge because he had seen what all the sufferings a man will get if he get himself addicted into vices such as gambling. Although Veda gives reference to gambling, this should be understood that this is applicable to broad range of addiction. So that's one important thing. These are all, we may say that Veda never talks about agriculture. No, Veda says, give up your gambling. Hey Manush, a man, don't ever go and touch the dice made up of Vibhidaka tree. Let's not nitpick. In those days people used, people use willow tree to make cricket bat. Similarly, they use jackfruit tree to make veena. Those days it was standardized to use Vibhidaka wood to make the dice. Then it begins. How does this begin? As I said, Veda is used for memorization, so it begins in a poetic way. Pravepa ma bruhato ma dhayanti prava teja harine varvritana somasyeva maujavastasya bhaksho vibidhako jhagrivir mahyamaschan. You see, Maujasva is the hill name, Vibhidaka is the wood name, And pravepa ma means me. I am getting bombarded by this great sound. Brihato madhayanti. Pravateja harine varvritanaha. Harini varvritanaha. Varvritana mane harini. Devoid of green. Devoid of pasture. I am at the foothills of a mountain in a desert. Pravateja mane hill or a heap. Harine varvritanaha. Pravepa ma bruhato madhayanti. I am getting afflicted. Madhayanti, harshayanti. I am getting addicted. I am getting afflicted by this sound of this dice. You should take it as sound of dice. As if I have consumed this nectar. Soma. Somasyeva maujavasthasya bhaksho vibhidako jagrivirmahyamaschan. So jagrivirmahyamaschan. Then it says dveshti swashrurapa dveshti. So my mother has become my enemy. Dveshti swashrurapa jhaya runadhi nanatito vindhate marditaram. So my wife, my bharya has become an enemy because that means she has gone away. She has neglected me. She has disowned me. Hey Savitri Devata, please bless me. Help me to gain control of my senses so that I will not be a gambler. I will listen to you and I will start plowing so that as you instructed, I will get money which I will use it for my own satisfaction in a balanced way. How many people would have thought that Veda elaborates in a beautiful poetic way? It says, my father has gone away. Alas, pita, mata, bhrataraha, yena mahurna. So they all gone. Jani monayata bhaddhametam. They have all gone. They have detached. Pita, mata, bhrataraha, yena mahu. All these people, all my relatives, yena mahu, all these known people, they have detached themselves from me. Pita, mata, bhratara, yena mahurna, janimo, nayata, bhaddameta. I have become a loner. I am going to rot alone. Hey God, please grant me the control of my sense. So, that is Vedic living. That one misunderstanding we are ruled out, saying that yes, Veda supports agriculture. Veda supports hard work. This is there in Rig Veda. Then in Yajurveda, just two phrases. Keep working hard. Keep pushing. Never give up. Shraddha Bhagasya Murdhani. In the Brahmana Bhaga, all this story about the gambler. Yajurveda, whose intention is about doing karma. It just says keep on doing. Shraddha Bhagasya Murdhani. Bhagamane Bhagyam. If you have to reap a benefit, Murdhani mane the goal, the end point. The end point of your hard work will come to you if you put your dedicated effort. Shraddha. Shraddha Bhagasya Murdhani. Murdhani means if you put efforts, the goal point you will achieve. Shraddha Bhagasya Murdhani. Bhagyam. Bhagyam mane good fortune. How will you get good fortune? I am not talking about money here. In general sense, how will you get success? Put it that way. How will you get success? If you keep focus. You keep on focusing. So, Lord Krishna also says, Karmanyeva adhikaraha ma phaleshu kadachana. Do not worry. It doesn't mean that you should not think about the fruits of hard work. If you put a dedicated effort, you don't even have to think about the fruit. Fruit will automatically come to you. That is granted. So in Gita, Krishna says, Karmanyeva adhikaraha. Keep doing. But do it to your full satisfaction. Do it to your fullest ability. Karmanyeva asya adhikaraha ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palahetur bhuhu mate sangotsava karmani. That is what you should associate yourself with your dedicated action. In those days, what was parisrama? The parisrama was agriculture. And Upanishad later on, Upanishad says, Annam bahu kurvita, keep on cultivating. And keep it as your vrata, keep it as your vow, keep it as your dedication. So one myth we have ruled out. The civilized society described in Veda talks about refined living. Of course, it allows you to have recreation. Because as part of Somayaga, Sapta Somayaga, in Vajapeya, there are Sapta Somayaga. These all come in the Yajurveda. One of the aspects of the Vajapeya Yagam is to have a horse race. So people used to, the Yajaman, the person who does that yaga, gets help from the Brihaspati priest and other things, and he is showing his valor in Vajapeya by driving a chariot which is yoked and drawn by 17 horses. So it is allowed, because once he finishes the yaga, which is a very difficult task, he has to have some kind of a recreation. So as part of that Vajapeya yaga, which is one of the Sapta Soma yaga, he drives a huge chariot which is driven by 17 horses. And there are 17 goalposts. In Vajapayam, everything is 17. So you pay obeisance to 17 learned people. You give them 17 different types of ornaments as part of their service. And then you have a chariot to show your valor or to show your success. It's like after you win a Super Bowl, you parade. Isn't it? Same thing, what they did after they successfully completed the Vajapeya, the Yajamana, the person who did that yaga, that ritual, enjoys himself and also tells to the world that we have all collectively done this sacrifice. So he drives a chariot made of 17 horses, and then he drives at Vayuveg, at a speed of air, and then he goes. That distance is not mentioned, but you can think that it's a long distance separated by 17 goalposts, and then he goes and completes all those 17 goalposts. And then he gives, it also talks about benevolence. He gives 17 different types of gifts, whether if it is clothes, 17 different of clothes. Whether it is an ornament, 17 different types of ornament. Whether it's a feast, 17 different of culinary varieties. So, recreation in a balanced way is allowed. Nritya is allowed. Dance is allowed. What are all Veda talks? What are all the instruments? Veena, Gana, Gayanti. In Ashwamedh, they say that people used to play Veena, lute, Dundubi, the drums called Dundubi. People played lute, people played Veena. And of course in Bhagavad it is Krishna, when the autumn time comes, Lord Krishna goes to Vrindavan and he starts playing flute. So Vyasa dedicates a separate section on Lord playing the flute, Venugan. Venu means flute, Venu basically means the bamboo. So the instrument made out of bamboo. So everything is connected. And people lived a very civilized life. What type of clothes they wore? Early on, there's a reference in Rig Veda that people wore skin of the animals, refined skin of the animals. Then people started cultivating, people started growing sheep. Then they took the hair of sheep, which we call wool. So then they wore clothes made out of wool. And then slowly they started knowing about the metals. So they started getting embroidery done using gold strings or silver string, Rajat or Swarna. later days. But early on, people used skin of animals. Then people started using wool. In the early Vedic time, cotton was not known. The Sanskrit name for cotton is karpasaha. So what we are studying today is the civilization development. From Sindhu river, people migrated to the flat, fertile Ganges plain, and then they started agriculture as a kartavya, as a vritti, as a krishi. Krishi means, these days we call it as agriculture. Krishi means hard work. Then what are the types of grains they grow first? Early Rigvedic people did not know about Goduma, wheat. They did not know about wheat. They only cultivated two grains. First one, predominant one is Yava. And nowadays we call Yava to be barley. It's barley, Yava. And then Vrihi, the rice. So two grains were abundant, Yava and then barley. And one interpretation is this Soma, not only it was a juice from Mount Mujavan, the herbs from Mount Mujavan, the juice or the decoction from Yava, barley, in a fermented way, which was offered to Indra. So they have to offer it to their faithful deity, and Indra occupies the predominant post. So Soma was a delightful drink to Indra, and there are two different versions. One interpretation is this Soma is from Lata, is from a herb, and peculiarly these herbs were grown in a hill called Mujavant. Then there is another interpretation that this is nothing but the fermented decoction of barley, because barley was available in plenty. And then they did two types. They just smashed and then roasted this vrihi. Vrihi is rice, uncooked rice. So they roasted that, and then they made balls out of it called purodasha. And this is the one they offered it in the Srauta Yajna. In those yajnas recommended in Vedas, they either used ajyam and they used this purodasha, the fried rice batter, and then made it in the form of balls. So they either add a salty ball or they add a sweety ball, which is called Masha Bhupam and Guda Bhupam. Masha mane crushed. So it's like what do you call? Puri, like that, puri. So Masha Bhupam, Guda Bhupam. Sweet, jaggery, made out of sweet. Donuts without hole in the middle. Assume that this is a donut, but fried donut. Masha Bhupam and Guda Bhupam. And then predominantly they used two different grains. Yava equal to barley, and then Vrihi. Vrihi, from Vrihi they did Anna. When they did Paka, when they cooked it in the presence of water, it became Anna. It became mushy Anna, the rice what we eat. So those were the two things that were known to the people on the early Vedic times. Slowly, Goduma, wheat came into existence, but this is later Vedic days. So people knew how to make clothes. Later Vedic days, people used silk. Later Vedic days, people used karpasa, means cotton. But the first settlers in these plains were used to using refined skin of animals, and then they knew wool. They wore clothes made out of wool. It makes sense because they were on the banks of river Ganges, on the foothills of Himalayas, on Gandhara and Kaikeya places where it's all present day Afghanistan, Kabul and all those, which is all mountainous region. So they need to protect themselves. Wool is thermally comfortable material. So they took the hair of sheep and goat and then made into a yarn and then made into a fabric and started using it. Beautiful. The civilization develops like this. So the virtue comes because what Veda says, you have to work hard. Well, how did the people work? Men went to the farm, they did the krishi. Women's duty in the morning was to milk the cows. So the name of the women, girls in the house is known as Dauhitri. Dauhitri mane duhina, the one who milks or one who pulls. Duhina mane to duhit, means to pull, that means to milk. So when the activity of young girls in the house in the morning was to milk the cows. So their activity was milking. Hence these people were known as Dauhitri. Dauhitri mane girls, but it takes the farm because the main activity these girls did in the morning was to milk the milk and then to start cooking and taking care of elders. When they were doing the afternoon chores, among them, they exchanged ideas, they exchanged knowledge. So, ladies were educated. That's what I'm coming. So, ladies were educated. Ladies supported men of the family. Whether it comes to protecting the cows. Sometimes cows will be taken by leopards. Cows will be taken by somebody enemies. So women went to fight for it. And women were not only educated, women were powerful. These things were never brought to the front foray. It is there. Rig Veda specifically tells all these. It brings the story, chronological order of how civilization developed from first mandala. What did we learn in first mandala? People started living on the banks of Sindhu, and it gives an example of a Rishi Kakshivan prizing Bhavya Sunaya. So there was a king called Bhavya, and his progeny started settling on the banks of Sindhu. That comes in the first mandala. And when it comes to the 10th mandala, the civilization was well established. Women were educated. Women exchanged knowledge. Women were physically fit. In addition to doing the routine chores like milking cows, they protected their wealth. What is the wealth? Their land and their cattle. And Veda gives an example in the 10th mandala, the discussion between a poet, a rishi and a rishi patni. The rishi's name is Mudgala. And the Mudgala has a wife called Mudgalani. So this Mudgala became weak. And he was not able to protect his cows. Veda gives that in 10th mandala. The story of Mudgala and his wife Mudgalani. So this Mudgalani gets strength. So Veda does it in its own way. Veda says that this Mudgalani prays to Lord Indra, Vajrabahu, the Lord of strength. And Indra blesses this lady. And in one instance, this Mudgala became so weak that he was taken away by his enemies. His cows were taken away by his enemies. Then this Mudgalani goes and protects Mudgala, and he drives him in the chariot and takes him away from the enemies. Her name was Mudgalani, and she does it with the help of Lord Indra. So the Rig Veda in its own way portrays this as an eulogy to the Lord of strength, who is nothing but, then Veda calls that you are the eye of the world. Hey protector, you are the eye of the world. In other words, this Mudgalani gained strength, and being Veda, it invokes the Indra, the Lord of the strength, and Indra grants strength. And in fact, Indra comes into Mudgalani. That is the story, Veda in its own way. And then she recovers all the cows and takes her husband Mudgala, the poet or the Rishi Mudgala, to a safe place, and then the family develops and grows. This same story, what did we study? We studied about the gambler. That gambler incident is brought in the story of Puran of Nala and Damayanti and Mahabharata. Similarly, this Mudgala story comes where? Similar. Ramayana. So when Dasaratha was fighting the war with Sambarasura to protect Indra, Dasaratha's wheel comes out. Kaikeyi goes and gives her little finger and makes that ratha, makes the chariot run. Because of that, Dasaratha was so pleased, not because Kaikeyi saved his life, because he was able to help Indra. To protect his kingdom, he gave her 2 boons. That's what Ramayana came. See, the Mudgala and Mudgalani's Veda incident is elaborated in Ramayana as if this happened between Dasaratha and Kaikeyi. So the Puranas and Itihasas make the Veda concept in a lucid story form. If somebody says don't gamble, who cares? Let him keep on crying, I don't care. But if the ill effects of gambling is brought out in an elaborate tale, telling how Yudhishthira, how Pancha Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas suffered because of gambling, not once, twice. They were separated from their family. This is what Veda says. Pita, Mata, Bhratara, Yena, Mahurna, Janimo, na Janimo. We lost contact. Na Janimo. We don't know. We don't know. The gambler lost touch with his Mata, lost touch with his Pita, lost touch with his family, Bhrata. All became no seen. Persona non grata. He has become persona non grata in his own family. The same thing happens to Yudhishthira and his 4 brothers. They have been thrown away from Indraprastha. Not only that, 1 year they have to hide themselves. If somebody finds them, their true identity, they have to go and do this Vanavasa again for 12 years. So they have become persona non grata in their own land. So the gambler's hymn, the agony and the sufferings of a gambler, gambling, which is a vice, is brought out in an elaborate lucid form in Mahabharata. Similarly, the strength of women to protect the family. So if you protect your family, you get what you want. That is the story of Ramayana. So Dasaratha granted her 2 boons. She saved those 2 boons. What she wants at the end, she wants her son to be the emperor. And she wants Rama to be departed. That was her wish. Whether it is a good wish or bad wish, that's not the matter here. She gets what she wants because she gave her full lust effort to protect her husband, in a way to protect the family. So we have taken one example, 1 vice and 1 virtue. 1 vice is unbalanced recreation, out of control recreation. Another thing is out of the way of going and helping and supporting. So virtue and vice. These are explained nicely stories. So nobody goes to this 10th mandala of Rigveda. I am a Yajurvedi, so I don't even have time to finish my 7 cantos. How am I supposed to go and look what Rigveda did? But anyway, we teach these courses, so we learn, we make effort. That's a different story. I'm talking about the general person. They don't know anything about Upanishad. After they study Upanishad, they have to go and read their own branch of Veda. That itself will take life, 1 lifetime. Then how are they supposed to go and study Rigveda, which I have been telling right from the first class? Rigveda gives elaborate understanding of way of life and how society developed. So, in the middle, somewhere, in the last book of Yajurveda, somewhere, a gambler laments as a monologue about what mistake he did. It tells a nice story. I am consumed as if I have consumed this drink and I have lost my sense. Because of that deed, I have become persona non grata. I am an isolate. Then it tells beautifully, I am a nagger of no use. I am an old nag that cannot be sold. Veda tells this, how beautiful it is. I am an old nag which has no sale value. See? So, Vedas teach good effects of virtue and it condemns ill activities, condemns vices. So, one vice which Veda strongly condemns is gambling. Veda extols women. That's one thing we need to take it. Veda extols the sacrifices a woman makes. And in its own way, it gives about 9 learned women. Rigveda, in my understanding, there could be many, but what I have gleaned in my limited scope, it talks about 9 learned women. Those names are Gosha, Lopamudra, Mamata, Apala, Surya, Indrani, Sachi, Sarparanjni, Viswavara. There are 9 learned women who are rishis. Rishis are poets or learned, who are professors. Take it like that. There are references, so it's not that it was a male-dominated society. Of course, the male would have done a lot of work and they were prominent, but the society respected women, respected their knowledge, respected their physical strength, respected their family bent attitudes. All these are there in Rigveda. Gosha, Lopamudra, Mamata, Apala, Surya, Indrani, Sachi, Sarparanjni, Viswavara. 9. There could be many. This is all I could do in my limited time of understanding of Rigveda. And Lopamudra was married to a rishi called Agastya. Some say this is the same rishi which was mentioned in Ramayana, but we should take this. There was a rishi referenced in Veda, Rigveda. His name was Agastya. And what did he do? Agastya Kanamana Kanitrai. Kanamana means to dig, to plow. With a tool, with a plow, he digged the earth. So, learned people also did hard work. That's what I'm coming. Veda extols hard work. There is a reference. In the first mandala itself, Veda says, Agastya Kanamana Kanitrai. Kanana means to break the earth, to plow. Kanitraihi, with a plow, with an axe, whatever you take it. Then Praja. Then he created Praja. Here Praja mane bihi. Idhar Praja mane sashya. Here Praja mane cultivation. So Agastya led a life, not only a learned life, but he also put in efforts. Agastya Kanamane Kanitraihi. That Agastya was married to a learned woman called Lopamudra. Gosha, Lopamudra, Mammata, Apala, Surya, Indrani, Sachi, Sarparanjni, Vishwavara. So, Vedic society was a civilized society. Respected knowledge, respected hard work, respected women. Women were educated. Women did all activities. Women protected the society right from the morning to the evening. At the same time, Vedic people enjoyed themselves in a balanced way. They used to do dance. Horse riding, horse racing was accepted. Not as a gamble. It was accepted, and that is evident when the Yajamana, after completing the Vajpaya Yaga, drove 17 horse-driven chariot and reached 17 goalposts. That is the reason in the later part, in the Istihasic time, in the Puranic time, in Ashwamedha Yaga, The emperor who wants to be the superior emperor used to send his horse to several places to express his valor and to conquer those who do not subjugate to him, to his dharmic way of living. So it's all connected. So Vedas preach great virtues for living, learning, having fun, and they also wore ornaments. It's there in Rig Veda. Women wore ornaments. And what dress they wore? First they wore the dress that is behind their hip. Then as the society started refining, they started wearing the upper cloth. Then they also wear their turban. Veda says that. So slowly they became much refined. Then they started knowing about two cereals. One was Yava, barley, and Vrihi. Then later Vedic people knew about Goduma. And that's why when you do the Navagraha Priti, there are 9 different types of cereals you use. But first and foremost it was Yava. And then they used to extract the decoction of herbs. And that is what we call as Somalata. And they say that they offered it to Indra. Indra was so much interested to accept the Soma Rasa, Soma juice. It's a herbal drink. And this Soma drink became an important part of oblation in Sapta Somayaga. It starts from Jyotishtoma. Then the final part is Vajapayam. Vaji mane horse. It doesn't mean that it is about horse. Vaji mane horse. It mane power. So it talks about the strength, the knowledge you gain by doing this Vajapaya. It's for 7 days and 7 nights. You control your senses. You don't even take bath. So that's a different story. We don't want to digress much. So Veda teaches virtue. Veda talks about how the society refined. That by giving examples of vices. If you do vices which are not prescribed in the doctrine, you will be a persona non grata. You will be an old nagger who has no resale value. That means nobody will take care of you. Veda says that old nag is of discarded old nag. Nobody wants an old nag. So a gambler, a man with an addiction becomes an old nag. Old nag of no value. That's what Veda says about gambling. So we have completed Veda. We started from first mandala of Rig Veda to say how humans settled in fertile plains. River was very important. River was part of their life. Water was part of life, which Veda says, Apo vai sarva devata. All devatas reside in up. Up means water. So all these people now in later days, as days and ages went by, people started using Vedas only for rituals and rites. Of course, that was also one intent, but that's not the only intent. So if you look at this, what is we now think about Vedas is doing for Pitrikarma, Srauta Yajna, Smarta Yajna, okay? But do we ever think that there are references like this in Veda? That's more important. Of course, you should do all the karma, no question about it. But you should first know how to live. Vedas, particularly Rig Veda, gives so much in abundance of way of life. So we have come to some conclusion about Veda. Of course, this is a primary class. We can't go Sukta after Sukta or Mandala after Mandala or Ashtaka after Ashtaka. It is impossible. But we have covered how the civilization started, how people migrated. Rivers are mentioned right from Rig Veda. Saraswati is mentioned in Rig Veda. Then Sapta Sindhu is mentioned in Rigved. Yajurved talks about Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. Then Puran talks about multiple rivers. Of course, Itihas talk about multiple rivers like the tributaries and distributaries of Ganges. You bring that right up front in Ramayana, Balakanda. In Kishkinda Kanda, the geography of the world, particularly Bharat, is mentioned. So all these come. So it's not only just a memorizing thing to do puja. It gives you, it's an atlas for lifestyle, put it that way. And we have learned that people started making their own clothes. Of course, people have to gain knowledge slowly. So they first used skin. Perhaps they would have refined it. Then they started using hair, goat hair, sheep hair, because the climatic region demanded that. Then people started covering themselves from the bottom down. Then they started covering with Angavastra, Upar, Urdhva. They covered with their top portion. Then they also started wearing their cap or turban, whatever you call. And they knew about 2 cereals to start with. Slowly they started to cook them, fry them, boil them. And all the different culinary varieties came. People fought with one another. When they fight with one another, because they have to protect their herd. So that's how the term Gotra came. So the cow herds, so that was their wealth. They protected their land. Then the society slowly developed. Sahana vavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Arihi Om.